I was eating a cold sandwich when the sky caught fire. My name is Rhea Morgan, and I was the night officer at Luna Defense Station on the far side of our moon. It was 3:00 in the morning. My shift was almost over, and I just wanted to finish my lunch and go home. Then every screen in the command room lit up at the same time. Red warning lights spun across the ceiling. My coffee cup shook on the desk. A face appeared on every monitor, a face I had never seen before. He was tall, covered in golden scales, and his eyes were like two burning stones. Behind him, I could see a massive warship, bigger than any city on Earth. When he spoke, the translation system turned his words into clear English, but his voice still made my skin feel cold. Small creatures of the third planet, he said. I am Grand Lord Ver of the Golden Empire. My fleet has arrived at the edge of your solar system. You have broken the sacred laws of our galaxy by spreading to other worlds without permission. You have 3 Earth days to surrender. Give us your weapons. Give us your colonies. Bow to our rule and we will let you live as our servants. Refuse and every human will be wiped from the stars. My empire has conquered 847 other races. You will be the next. Then he was gone. I sat there for maybe 5 seconds, just staring at the blank screen. My sandwich was still in my hand. I put it down slowly, then I pressed the red button on my desk that I had never pressed before in my whole career. The emergency line rang straight through to General Ademi in Geneva. Morgan, his deep voice said, I assume you saw the message. Yes, sir. 3,000 ships, sir. The sensors are picking them up now, just past Neptune. They are huge. I have never seen anything like this. There was a long pause. Then the general laughed. He actually laughed. Sir, I said. Commander Morgan, he said, how long have you worked for solar defense? 8 years, sir. And in those 8 years, did you ever wonder why we kept building warships? Why we kept training pilots? Why we spent so much money on mass drivers in the asteroid belt when we had no enemies? I thought about it. I had wondered. Actually, many of us had. For 30 years. Ever since the peaceful Kelty traders made first contact with Earth, humanity had been quietly building up, ship after ship, weapon after weapon, base after base, and people always asked the same question: why? The aliens we had met were friendly. There was no threat. I did wonder, sir, I said. Well, Commander, tonight you have your answer. Stand down. Do nothing. Say nothing. Wait for orders. Sir, they gave us 3 days. Should we not respond? Send a reply. Start negotiations. General Ademi's voice became very quiet. Commander, listen to me carefully. We will not respond. Not now, not tomorrow. Not in 3 days. We will not play their game. Finish your sandwich and go home to sleep. When you come back tomorrow, act like nothing happened. Sir, I do not understand. You will, he said. Soon everyone will. The line went dead. I sat in that empty command room for a long time, watching the red light spin on the ceiling outside my small window. The stars looked the same as always. Cold, quiet, beautiful, but now, somewhere out there past Neptune, 3,000 warships were floating in the dark, waiting for our answer. And we were going to give them nothing. When I finally stood up, my legs felt shaky. I walked down the long hallway to the crew quarters. My friend Oliver was just waking up for his morning shift. He Smiled at me, rubbing his eyes. Rough night, he asked. You could say that. Anything interesting happen? I almost told him, I almost said. Everything. But the general's words were still in my head, act like nothing happened. Just a quiet night, I said. He nodded and walked past me. I went to my room, laid down on my small bed, and stared at the ceiling. Sleep would not come. My mind kept replaying the golden creature's words. 847 races, all of them conquered, all of them erased or turned into servants, and now our turn had come. But something was strange, very strange. General Ademi had not sounded scared. He had sounded almost happy, like he had been waiting for this moment his whole life, like all of us had been waiting, without even knowing it. I turned on my small personal screen and checked the news channels. Nothing, no mention of the message, no emergency broadcast, no panic in the cities. Either the governments of Earth had shut down all reporting, or the golden creature had only sent his message to military stations like mine. I checked the public space traffic feeds, everything normal, trade ships moving between Earth and Mars, supply runs to the Jupiter stations, mining ships in the asteroid belt, all normal, like nothing had happened. Then I noticed something. A small fleet of mining ships had left the asteroid belt 2 weeks ago. They were moving slowly, using old-fashioned engines, pushing very large rocks toward Mars. Routine work, boring, nobody would look twice. But the paths of those rocks, the angles, the speeds, I zoomed in and did some quick math in my head. Those rocks were not going to Mars. Those rocks were on paths that would take them right to where the golden fleet was floating in about 3 days. And they were moving faster than mining. Rocks should move much, much faster. I closed the screen and lay back down. My heart was beating hard now, but not from fear, from understanding. For 30 years we had been preparing, not just building ships and weapons, preparing the mining operations, the trade routes, the civilian freighters, the stealth research programs that nobody talked about, the drones that our scientists said were for exploration. All of it, every piece, we had been getting ready for exactly this day. And the golden creature, sitting on his big throne in his big ship, thought he was giving us a final warning. He thought he was being generous. 3 days to surrender. 3 days to save our little blue planet. He did not know that 3 days was exactly the time we needed. I finally smiled, a small smile in the dark. Then I did something I had not expected. I closed my eyes and fell asleep, deep, peaceful sleep, the best sleep I had in months. When I woke up 12 hours later, the world was still turning, people were still going to work, children were still going to school, markets were open in Lagos and London and Tokyo. Nobody was panicking because nobody, except a few hundred people in the highest military positions, even knew what was happening. I made myself breakfast, got dressed, my uniform, and walked back to the command center for my next shift. Oliver was just finishing up. He yawned. Anything exciting? I asked him. Nope. Quietest day I have had in weeks. Strange, actually. Usually we get at least a few calls from the mining fleets, but today nothing. It is like everyone went quiet at the same time. I kept my face calm. Strange, I said. He went off to sleep and I took his seat. I looked at the sensor screens. The 3,000 golden ships were still there. Floating just past Neptune, they were. Waiting for us to respond, waiting for our diplomatic team, waiting for our champion fleet, waiting for our formal surrender. And we were giving them silence. Beautiful, total, deadly silence. I pulled out a fresh sandwich, the same cold ham and cheese I liked, and took a slow bite. Somewhere out there, the Grand Lord of the Golden Empire was starting to get angry. I could almost feel it. His 3-day clock was ticking, and he had received exactly 0 response from the primitive apes of the 3rd planet. Good, I thought. Let him get angry. Let him get frustrated. Let him lose his patience and his pride and his precious sacred rules one by one as he sits in the dark waiting for an answer that will never come. Because when the 3 days end, he is going to learn something that 847 other races never had the chance to teach him. Humans do not fight wars the way the galaxy fights wars. We fight them to finish them. And we have been ready for a very long time. I watched the countdown on my screen with a strange calm in my chest. 72 hours, that was what the Grand Lord had given us, 3 full Earth days to surrender or face total destruction. It was now hour 63, only 9 hours left. And across the whole solar system, humanity was doing absolutely nothing that the Golden Empire could see. My name is Daniel Clark. I am the captain of a small destroyer called the Blackbird, and I am writing this from my captain's chair because I want you to understand what those 9 hours were like. From my side of things, my ship was hidden, really hidden, not just in some distant orbit, but tucked inside a cloud of ice and dust far out in the Kuiper Belt, past the orbit of Pluto. Around me, the same cloud, were 400 other destroyers, 400 ships, all of them silent, all of them dark, all of them waiting. The Golden Fleet could not see us. Their sensors were good, but they were looking for ships that acted like normal ships. They were looking for engines, for heat, for radio signals. We gave them none of those things. We had shut down everything except life support. We were breathing shallow breaths in the cold dark, and we were watching them. On my main screen I could see the Golden Empire's fleet, 3,000 massive warships floating in perfect formation. Just past Neptune, they looked like a wall of metal mountains. Each one was big enough to destroy a city. Together, they were big enough to destroy a planet, and they were waiting very politely for us to send our champion fleet out to meet them for a ritual battle. We were not going to send anything. A message came through my quiet communication line from High Command. Just one short sentence. Hold position, hold silence, the clock is almost done. I nodded to my crew, though they could not see me on the dark bridge. My first officer, a woman named Grace Fielding, was sitting next to me. She had her hands folded in her lap, very still. She had not spoken in 3 hours. None of us had. What we were doing felt wrong in a way. For thousands of years, humans had believed in certain ideas about conflict. You face your enemy, you warn them, you give them a chance, you fight them with honor. But the people who had taught me those ideas had never faced a force that could erase every human from the galaxy with a single command. They had never faced the Golden Empire. So we had thrown those ideas away. I watched the sensors. The Golden Empire had been sending us messages for 3 days. Now, at first, their messages were formal, proud, arrogant, even Primitive creatures, respond to our declaration. Send your representatives to our flagship. Where is your champion fleet? Then, as the hours passed and we gave them nothing, the messages changed. You dishonor your species with this. Silence. Respond, or you will be remembered as cowards across the stars. This is your final warning. Respond. Immediately. We did not respond. Instead, we did things they could not see. 200 stealth drones were already inside their fleet. They had drifted in over the past 2 weeks, one at a time, piece by piece, powered down and covered in special materials that made them invisible to golden sensors. They were mapping every ship, every weak point, every crew movement. They were learning. They were waiting for their signal. The asteroid belt, hundreds of large rocks were now on their final trajectories, huge ones, some with the size of small cities. They had been pushed slowly over months by old mining engines that put out very low energy signatures. The Golden Empire had watched some of them drift by and had assumed they were just debris. They did not notice that every single one of those rocks was pointed at a precise location near Neptune, and every single one was traveling at speeds that should not be possible. On Mars, the old passenger ships at the colony docks had been quietly changed. Some of their seats had been removed. New equipment had been installed in the cargo holds. The ships looked the same. From the outside, their engines sounded normal, but they were not passenger ships anymore. They were something else. And around Earth itself, thousands of civilian satellites had changed their orbits in the last few days very slowly. Regular people did not notice. Trade ships did not notice, but if you looked at them from above, and if you knew what you were looking for, you would see that they had formed a perfect layered defense net around the home planet. Everything was ready. Everything had been ready for 30 years. Grace finally spoke next to me. Her voice was quiet. Captain, do you think they know, even a little bit? I thought about it, then I shook my head. No, I said, they do not know. They cannot know. Their entire history has been full of easy victories. Every race that came before us played the game their way. They fought with honor. They respected ceremony. They surrendered when they lost. The Golden Empire has never met anyone who refuses to play. They do not have a word in their language for what we are doing. And what are we doing? She asked. I looked at her. We are waiting. She smiled a small, tired smile. The whole species waiting. The whole species. At hour 71, the final message came from the Golden Empire. The Grand Lord himself appeared on every screen in the solar system again. His golden scales looked less shiny now. His eyes were darker, angrier. Humans, he hissed, your silence is an act of war. Your dishonor is an act of war. You have spit on the sacred laws of the galaxy. You will now learn what happens to species who refuse the mercy of the Golden Empire. In 1 hour, my fleet will advance. Your planet will burn. Your colonies will be broken. Your name will be forgotten. This is your final moment. Respond now or be ended. The message ended. And then, for the first time in 3 days, humanity replied. It was not General Ademi who answered. It was not the Secretary General of the United Nations. It was not a fleet admiral or a diplomat. It was a woman named Lucy Hall. She was a 31-year-old history teacher from a Small town in Ireland, she had been chosen by a random computer program from every adult on Earth. Her only job was to read the message that had been written for her. She sat in a simple office. She wore simple green sweater. Her hair was tied back. She was drinking tea. She looked right into the camera and spoke in a calm, ordinary voice, as if she were teaching a class. "Hello, Grand Lord. Sorry for the late reply. We have been busy. We got your messages, but honestly, we decided not to respond to any of them. Your rules, your ceremonies, your sacred laws, your champion fleets, your surrender protocols, we find all of that very boring, so we skipped it. You can do whatever you want now. We are ready." She took a small sip of her tea. "Oh, and one more thing. You said we will be remembered as cowards across the stars. That is fine. We are not really worried about how we are remembered, because after today there will not be anyone left who remembers the Golden Empire at all. Goodbye." She turned off the camera. For a long moment the solar system was completely silent. Then, across 400 ships hidden in the Kuiper Belt, every crew on every bridge burst into laughter. I laughed until tears came to my eyes. Grace was bent over in her seat, her shoulders shaking. Even my quiet navigation officer, a young man named Peter Hughes, was wiping his face and grinning. We laughed for maybe 30 seconds. Then the laughter stopped and every face became serious. The hour began to tick down. On the Grand Lord's flagship, I later learned there was pure chaos. Officers shouting, translators checking in, rechecking what Lucy Hall had said, military advisors trying to understand if this was some new human ritual, some hidden challenge, some coded message. They did not understand. They could not understand. A random teacher, a cup of tea, and a polite goodbye. It did not fit anywhere in their long history of war. Their sacred rules had no space for it. The Grand Lord, I am told, screamed for 10 straight minutes. Then he gave the order to advance. 3,000 warships began to move toward the inner solar system, slowly, ceremonially, in perfect formation. They came like a great parade. They expected us to come out to meet them somewhere near Jupiter, where battles between civilized races were traditionally held. They expected flags, announcements, opening challenges. They expected a dance. We were not going to dance. The moment their engines lit up, everything changed for us. Across 400 hidden destroyers, lights came on. Engines warmed up quietly, weapons primed. The drones inside their fleet woke up. The rocks in the asteroid belt were now only minutes away. The civilian ships on Mars launched one after another, thousands of them, carrying no passengers. The satellites around Earth activated their hidden systems. Grace looked at me. "Captain," she said, "orders." I touched the small photo of my daughter, taped to my console. She was 6 years old, smiling in a blue dress, holding a toy star. I had not seen her in 4 months. "Open channel to fleet," I said. The channel opened. 400 captains were listening. I spoke clearly. "This is Captain Clark Blackbird, to every ship in this fleet, and every soldier, and every pilot, and every engineer, and every human who has waited for this day. We are not here to fight with honor. We are not here to win glory. We are here because a force of 3,000 ships want to erase our children from the sky. So we're going to stop them. All the way, no rules, no ceremonies, no mercy given because they came here to give us none. We end this today, we end this so that no one ever comes back to do it again. I paused. Clark out. I closed the channel. Grace was looking at me with shining eyes. Captain, she said, the clock. I looked at the clock. 3 seconds. 2, 1, 0. Somewhere out past Neptune, the first asteroid arrived. I was not supposed to survive. None of us were. My name is Crix, and I was a junior sensor officer aboard the Golden Empire. Flagship Eternal Light. I am writing this from a small, warm human prison, where I have been given food, medical care, and a soft bed, which is not what I expected. My guards are polite. One of them, a young woman named Hannah Brooks, brings me tea every morning and asks how I am feeling. I do not know how to answer her questions. I'm still trying to understand what happened. I am writing this because my people need to know the truth. The Empire lied about what happened at Neptune. They had to lie because the truth was too strange to tell. The truth is this: the war lasted 47 seconds. Let me start at the beginning of those 47 seconds. I was at my sensor station when the clock hit 0. My job was to watch for human ships coming out to meet us. Our scouts had reported that the humans had a small fleet hidden somewhere in their inner system, probably near their red planet Mars. Grand Lord Ver expected them to come out in proper formation, fly to the traditional battle point near the giant gas planet they called Jupiter, and begin ceremonial combat. So I was looking toward Jupiter. That was my mistake. That was everyone's mistake. The first warning came from my secondary screen, a small alert. Something was approaching from behind us. Sensor contact, I said into my headset, fast moving, coming from the outer system, direction the ice field they call the Kuiper Belt. My supervisor, Officer Niels, laughed at me. The Kuiper Belt, Junior, there is nothing there, just ice and rocks there. Colony ships barely go out that far. But the reading is, focus on your work, watch Jupiter. The humans will come from Jupiter. I looked back at my main screen, but the warning on my other screen kept growing. Red, bigger, faster. Then another warning appeared, then 10 warnings, then 100. I turned to Officer Niels. Sir, you need to see this. He walked over and looked at my screen. His face, which had been calm a moment ago, went pale. His mouth opened. No sound came out. What is it? I asked. Rocks, he whispered. Rocks. Asteroids, hundreds of them coming at us from the belt. How fast? He could not speak. He just pointed at the number on my screen. I read it again. I did not believe it. No object that size could move that fast. It was impossible. You needed engines the size of moons to push a rock that big at those speeds. You needed power the size of a star. Unless you did not use engines at all. Unless you used simple tools over long months, patient and quiet, adding small amounts of speed every day, carefully calculated, pushing the rocks onto paths that would bring them here now at exactly this moment. How long do we have? I asked. Officer Niels looked at the clock. 11 seconds. He ran toward the Grand Lord's chair. I stayed at my station because I could not make my legs move. I watched the rocks come in on my screen. The computer tried to plot them all, but there were too many. Some were small, only the size of houses. Others were as big as mountains. All of them were moving at speeds that should not be possible. They were not weapons technically. They were just rocks. But at those speeds, they did not need to be weapons. Pebble moving fast enough has the power of a bomb. A mountain moving fast enough has the power of a small sun. The first rock hit a cruiser on our left flank. The cruiser did not explode. It simply stopped existing. One moment, there was a warship with 3,000 crew. The next moment, there was a flash of white light and a cloud of dust. The second rock hit the battleship next to it. Same result. The third rock, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. In 3 seconds, 30 of our ships were gone. But that was only the beginning. Because while the rocks were arriving, something else was happening, something worse. The small human drones that had been hiding inside our fleet for weeks woke up. We had not seen them. They were coated in something that made our sensors blind to them. They had drifted in with trade dust, with our own supply runs, with the routine movements of our formation, and now they activated all at once. They did not attack us. They did something worse. They began sending out a strong jamming signal. Every sensor on every Golden Empire ship went dark. Every communication line filled with static. Every targeting system lost its luck. We were suddenly blind. 3,000 ships floating in space could not see each other, could not see the enemy, could not see the rocks still coming. I heard the Grand Lord shouting on the bridge, "What is happening? Where is the enemy? Show me the enemy." There was no enemy to show, not in the way he understood. The humans had not sent a fleet. They had sent physics. In the darkness of my broken sensor screen, I saw flashes, more rocks hitting more ships. Each flash was a battleship dying. Each flash was 10,000 of my people gone. 12 seconds into the battle, 300 Golden Empire ships destroyed. Then the destroyers came. I did not see them on sensors because my sensors were still jammed, but I could feel the flagship shaking as they appeared. They came from the Kuiper Belt. Just like the rocks, 400 small, fast human destroyers. They were not formed in a battle line. They had no formation at all. They were hunting in small packs of 4 or 5. They came at us from every direction, from above, from below, from behind, from the sides. They struck at our command ships first, at our supply ships, at our communication ships. They did not strike at our warriors. They struck at what kept our warriors alive. I heard Officer Neal shouting beside me. They are targeting the generals. They are firing on the supply lines. This is against the laws, against all laws. Yes, it was against all laws, against every ancient rule that every civilized race in the galaxy had agreed to follow for 10,000 years, and the humans, I realized, did not care about those rules. They had never cared. They had never agreed. 20 seconds into the battle, 1,500 ships destroyed, half our fleet. The Grand Lord tried to broadcast a message of parley, a call to pause, to speak, to negotiate terms. Our ancient code required the enemy to respond to such a call. Every race in the galaxy had respected it for centuries. Even when they were winning, the humans ignored it. I heard the Grand Lord's channel open to their fleet. "I am Grand Lord Ver of the Golden Empire, I call for parley, I call for. Honorable pause, I call for. A human voice replied. It was calm. Almost bored, a male voice. I later learned it belonged to Captain Daniel. Clark. We are not interested, sir, please. Stand by while we continue. Then the channel closed. Stand by. That was what he said to the Grand Lord of the Golden Empire, conqueror of 40 worlds, ruler of 1,000 systems. Stand by. 30 seconds into the battle. Then came the civilian ships. I did not understand what they were at first. Our remaining sensors picked up thousands of small vessels coming from the direction of Mars. They had weak engines. They had no weapon signatures. They looked like passenger liners, cargo ships, ferries. Harmless, beautiful in a way. They came in slow waves. The Grand Lord saw them on the main screen. For a moment his face filled with hope. The humans are surrendering. They send their refugees, their civilians seeking mercy. No, Grand Lord, they were not seeking mercy. The ships were empty, every single one. No civilians, no crew, no passengers. They had been emptied out months ago and refilled with something else, a human concept I still do not fully understand, called the Hammer Protocol. When the first ships reached our formation, they lit up like stars and released everything they carried into our ranks. The Grand Lord's flagship did not take a direct hit, but 3 of the massive ships beside us vanished instantly. My own bridge shook so hard that I was thrown from my chair. My helmet cracked against the floor. My vision went blurry. When I could see again, I saw Officer Neelix on the ground next to me. He was not moving. I do not think he was breathing. I called his name. I shook him. There was no answer. 38 seconds into the battle, I crawled back to my station. Most of my screens were dark, but one still worked. I could see the outside of the flagship, the Golden Empire fleet, the pride of 9,000 years, the force that had crushed 847 other civilizations was broken. Everywhere, pieces floating in the dark. Engines silent, guns cold. Of our 3,000 ships, I counted quickly. The ones that were still whole, 400. Maybe less, already damaged, already losing power. And the humans had lost, as far as I could tell, almost nothing. A handful of drones, perhaps a few destroyers on the edges, nothing that mattered. 42 seconds. The Grand Lord, blood running down his golden forehead, gave the order to retreat. It was the first time the Golden Empire had ever given such an order in its entire history. The retreat signal went out to the surviving ships. But the humans did not let us leave. They closed in around us. They cut off our escape paths. They targeted our faster-than-light engines specifically, one by one, taking away our ability to run. They did it carefully, cleanly, like workers at a task they had practiced 1,000 times. The Grand Lord realized what they were doing, and he began to shake with fury. They will not even allow us a retreat. He shouted, "This is against every law, every tradition, every code of honor. They are animals, they are monsters." I wanted to tell him the truth, but I did not dare. The truth was the humans were not monsters. The humans were something worse for us at that moment. They were simply not interested in the rules he cared about. They had come here to end a threat, not to win a battle, not to collect glory, not to earn respect, just to end a threat completely so it could never threaten them again. 45 seconds. A human boarding party docked against our flagship. I could hear their magnetic boots in the outer corridors. I heard the heavy doors opening. I heard calm voices giving orders, not shouts. Not battle cries, just calm, quiet. Professional voices. 47 seconds. 2 human soldiers stepped onto our bridge. Both wore heavy armor. Both carried weapons. One was a man, one was a woman. The woman removed her helmet. Her face was ordinary, short brown hair. Kind eyes even. She looked at the Grand Lord, who was slumped in his command chair, his golden crown tilted to one side. Sir, she said politely, on behalf of the government of humanity, I am placing you under arrest. Please come with us. You will not be harmed. Your soldiers who surrender will be treated according to our laws. I am sorry for the mess. Sorry for the mess. She said that. The Grand Lord stared at her, then he began to laugh. It was not a happy laugh, it was the laugh of someone whose world had just ended. The battle was over. The war, as the humans called it, lasted another 19 days, but that was just clean up, as Hannah Brooks, my kind guard, later told me. The main fight, the real war, had ended in less than a minute. The Golden Empire, the great terror of 847 conquered races, had met the humans at Neptune, and the humans had not even been breathing hard. I am Lyra of the Kelton Trading Circle, and I have known humans longer than most of my species. I was the 3rd officer on the trading ship that made first contact with Earth 32 years ago. I have eaten in human homes. I have watched their children grow. I have laughed with them, cried with them, and even attended one of their strange ceremonies called a birthday party. I thought I understood them. I did not. After what happened at Neptune, I understood that no one in the galaxy understood humans, not even humans understood humans. I think they simply were what they were, and now the rest of us had to learn to live with that. I am writing this part of the story from the Galactic Council chamber, where I have spent the past 3 weeks in meetings that have changed the shape of our galaxy forever. I am writing it for those who come after us, so they will know what we did and why and what it cost. The news from Neptune spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The Golden Empire, which had ruled unchallenged for 9,000 years, had been broken in under minute by a small young race that nobody had taken seriously at first. Nobody believed it. Councils across 100 systems demanded proof. When the proof came in the form of scans and survivor reports and images of floating wreckage, the councils fell silent. Then came something worse. The humans did not stop at Neptune. They followed the signal. They traced the path of the Golden Empire ships back to where they came from, first to the supply bases in the outer regions, then to the gathering points, then to the military planets, and finally 12 days after the battle at Neptune, a small human fleet appeared in orbit around the Golden Empire's capital world. The capital had never been approached by an enemy fleet in its entire history. There was no defense plan. There was no emergency response. The orbital guns had not been tested in 2,000 years. The humans did not attack the capital. That was the strange thing. That was the terrifying thing. They just appeared in orbit, sent a short message to the ruling council of the Golden Empire, and waited. The message, as I later read it, was Very short. Hello, we are humans, your grand lord. Attacked our home, we have come to speak. With you, please send a representative. To our ship, no weapons, no ceremonies. Just talk. The Golden Empire Ruling Council, which was made up of the most powerful beings in 97 systems, did exactly as the humans asked. A small shuttle came up from the capital. Inside was the highest elder of the empire, a creature older than any human civilization. He was shaking so badly I was later told that his aides had to help him walk. The humans gave him water. They invited him to sit. They asked him how his journey was. They were by every account extremely polite. Then they presented their terms. The terms were not what anyone expected. The humans did not demand the Golden Empire's lands. They did not demand its wealth. They did not demand revenge. They demanded three simple things. First, the Golden Empire would disarm its military. All warships would be melted down. All weapons factories would be closed. Second, the Golden Empire would return every conquered species to freedom, not in stages, not over time, immediately. Third, the Golden Empire would agree, in writing, to never again declare war on any species for any reason. The elder asked one question. If we refuse? The human leader, a general named Ademi, smiled gently. He did not answer the question with words. He simply pointed out the window where the small human fleet was visible over the capital. Then he showed the elder a map. On the map were red dots. Each red dot was a location inside the Golden Empire capital city where something dangerous had been placed, not by soldiers, not by spies, by ordinary human traders and travelers who had visited the capital over the past 30 years, each of them carrying one small, harmless-looking object, each of them leaving one object behind. There were 10,000 red dots. The elder looked at the map for a very long time. Then he signed the treaty. When the news reached the Galactic Council, a panic spread that I had never felt before in all my years of service. The council immediately called an emergency session. Every member species sent their highest leaders. The chamber, which normally held about 600 delegates, was packed with nearly 2,000. Every race wanted to be there. Every race wanted to understand what had just happened. I was chosen to speak for the Kelton people. My species had been humanity's first and closest friend. The council wanted to know what we knew. They wanted to know what the humans really were. The Archon of the ancient Thuris Council rose first. His race was the oldest in the galaxy, older even than the Golden Empire had been. His voice was deep and slow. We have watched the younger races rise and fall for 100,000 years, he said. Never have we seen anything like what the humans have done. In under 1 month, a single small species has broken the largest empire in recorded history. We must understand how this was possible. We must understand what they are, and we must decide what to do about them. Voices shouted from every corner of the chamber. Some cried for containment. They wanted humanity locked inside their own solar system, never allowed to leave. Some cried for destruction. They wanted every species in the galaxy to join forces and wipe out humanity before they could grow stronger. Some cried for alliance. They said that the humans were now the most powerful force in the galaxy, and we must befriend them before we became their enemies. The Archon raised his ancient hand for silence. The chamber went quiet. Containment is not possible, he said. Slowly, the human fleet just traveled across the entire Golden Empire territory in 12 days. No force we can assemble would be able to hold them inside one solar system. It is too late for that option. A murmur spread through the chamber. As for destruction, the Archon continued, we just saw what happened when 3,000 Golden Empire ships tried this. If every species in the galaxy united and sent every ship we had, we might succeed, but we would pay a price in lives that would destroy us just as surely. Another murmur. The only option remaining, said the Archon, is understanding. We must understand them before we decide what to do about them. We must know who they are. And then he turned to me. Ambassador Lyra, he said, please tell us what you know of humanity. I stood. My legs were trembling. 2,000 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy were looking at me. I took a deep breath and began. I have spent 30 years with humans, I said. I have lived in their cities. I have worked in their markets. I have taught their children in their schools. I thought I knew them. After Neptune, I realized I did not. So for the past 3 weeks, I have been reading their history, everything, every book they would share with me, and I have learned something that every member of this council needs to understand. The chamber was silent. Humans fought wars for 10,000 years before they met any other species, I said. 10,000 years on one planet against themselves. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. Some species whispered among themselves. In those 10,000 years, I continued, they never developed the laws of war that the rest of the galaxy follows. They never agreed on sacred rules of combat. They never built ceremonies of surrender. They had some of these ideas in some cultures some of the time, but they always threw them away when survival required it. Every human nation at some point in its history fought a war without rules. Every human nation at some point decided that winning mattered more than honor. They did not see these decisions as shameful. They wrote songs about them. They taught them to their children. I paused. I looked around the chamber. Every eye was on me. Members of the council, what the humans did at Neptune was not a new tactic. It was not a clever surprise. It was simply how humans have always fought throughout their entire history. The Golden Empire made the mistake of thinking humans would follow galactic rules of war, but humans had never agreed to those rules. They did not even know about them, really, until 30 years ago, and when they learned about them, they decided they did not care. A delegate from the Varn species stood up in anger. Then they are barbarians. They are animals. We must destroy them before they destroy us. I shook my head slowly. With respect, honored delegate, you do not understand. Humans are not barbarians. If they were barbarians, they would have conquered Earth thousands of years ago and never been able to reach space. The truth is the opposite. The humans have spent their entire history trying very hard to stop themselves from fighting. They have built governments to hold back their own violence. They have written rules and laws to limit their own aggression. They have dreamed over and over again of a world where war does not exist. Most of them are kind. Most of them are gentle. Most of them would never hurt another being. Then why did they do what they did at Neptune, the Varn delegate demanded. Because, I said, humans have learned something the rest of us never learned. When someone threatens their children, their homes, their survival, all those kind and gentle instincts turn into something else, something they call total commitment. They stop caring about rules, they stop caring about honor. They stop caring about anything except making sure the threat never comes back. And when that happens, they are the most dangerous beings in this galaxy. The chamber was very quiet now. The Golden Empire threatened their children, I said. The Golden Empire promised to erase their species, and so the humans did what they have always done when their survival is on the line. They stopped being polite. The Archon nodded slowly. What do you propose, Ambassador? I looked around the chamber at all those worried, angry, frightened faces. I propose peace, I said. The humans have not asked for anything from any of us. They have not demanded tribute. They have not claimed territory. They defeated the Golden Empire, and then, instead of taking the Empire's wealth and power for themselves, they freed the conquered species and went home. Does that sound like the behavior of a conquering race to you? A ripple went through the chamber. The humans are not here to rule us, I said. They do not want to rule us. They want to be left alone. They want to trade. They want to explore. They want to live their lives. If we treat them with respect, they will be the greatest friends this galaxy has ever known. If we threaten them, we will share the fate of the Golden Empire. I sat down. The debate continued for 3 more days. Some delegates still cried for war, some still cried for containment, but in the end the council voted. By a margin of 4-1, they agreed to invite humanity into the galactic community as a full and equal member. When the vote was done, I was sent as the messenger. I traveled to Earth for the first time in 2 years. My ship landed at a port in the city they called Geneva. General Ademi himself met me at the landing pad. He had grown older. His hair was more gray than I remembered, but his eyes were the same, kind, tired, patient. Ambassador Lyra, he said, taking my hand in the human way, welcome back to Earth. General, I said, I come with a message from the Galactic Council. I gave him the formal document. He read it slowly. When he finished, he looked up at me. We accept, he said simply. That is all? I asked. No conditions? No demands? He shook his head. We never wanted to fight anyone, Ambassador. We only wanted to live. Galaxy has decided to let us live. That is enough. He smiled. Now, he said, would you like some tea? I think the worst is over. I would like to sit and talk, not as a general and an ambassador, but as 2 old friends who have been through something difficult. I looked at him. I looked at his tired, hopeful, deeply ordinary human face, and I understood for the first time why the galaxy was going to be safe in their hands. My name is Rhea Morgan, and this is the end of my story. It has been 10 years since that night when I ate a cold sandwich in my small office on the moon and watched a golden creature on my screen promise to erase my species from the stars. 10 years since the silence. 10 years since Neptune. 10 years since Lucy Hall drank her tea and said goodbye to the Grand Lord. A lot has changed. I am Admiral Morgan now. They promoted me for reasons I still do not fully agree with. I did not fight at Neptune. I was only the night officer who saw the first message, but General Ademi, when he retired, told the government that I had kept my head that night, and that mattered, so they put stars on my uniform, and now I command the flagship of the Human Defense Fleet, a ship called the Bright Morning. I am writing this from the observation deck of my ship, which is currently in orbit over Earth. Below me, I can see the lights of cities. Mumbai is glowing, Buenos Aires is glowing, Cairo is glowing. 7 billion humans living their ordinary lives, mostly unaware of what happened a decade ago, mostly unaware of how close we all came to ending. I want them to stay unaware. That is our job, mine and the people who work for me. We keep the lights on, we keep the sky safe, and most importantly, we make sure that what happened with the Golden Empire never happens again. The first few years after Neptune were strange. The galaxy had voted to accept humanity, but everyone was still scared of us. Nobody wanted to visit Earth. Trade came in very slowly. Alien ambassadors were polite but distant, like people at a funeral who do not quite know what to say. We understood. We waited, we smiled and made tea and gave speeches about peace, and slowly, one species at a time, the fear began to fade. The Kelton traders, always our friends, came first, then a few smaller races who had been conquered by the Golden Empire and who now owed us their freedom. Then a few of the ancient middle powers, careful and curious. Then finally, the great ancient races, the Thuris and the Valorium and others, who had watched from the shadows and made their slow decisions in their slow way. By the 5th year, Earth was part of the galactic community in truth, not just in name. Our ships traveled to 100-star systems. Alien students came to study at Oxford and Tokyo University. Human musicians performed in alien concert halls. We had embassies everywhere. We had friends everywhere. We had, for the first time in our history, a place in the wider universe. And we had rules, new rules, our rules. They were not written down in any treaty. They were not taught in any school, but every species in the galaxy learned them one way or another in those 10 years. The first rule was simple: do not threaten humans, do not threaten our allies, do not threaten anyone under our protection. 3 races tried in those 10 years. They do not exist anymore, not as military powers anyway. Their citizens are still alive. Most of them are doing fine, in fact, but their governments are gone, their armies are gone, their leaders are gone. In their place, we helped set up new systems chosen by their own people, led by those who had been peaceful before. It was not conquest exactly, it was something the galaxy had never seen before and had no word for. The humans called it cleaning up. The other species simply called it what the humans do. The second rule was also simple: if you do not threaten us, we will not threaten you, and we will in fact be extremely helpful. Need a plague cured? We have. Doctors need a famine fixed? We have. Agriculture experts need a broken world rebuilt? We have. Engineers, we asked for nothing in return except friendship. Most of the time, friendship came freely. The third rule was the hardest for the galaxy to accept: no more wars, none ever, between any species for any reason. That rule shocked the ancient races most of all. War had been a part of galactic life for hundreds of thousands of years. It was ritual, it was ceremony, it was how younger species became older, it was how empires rose and fell. Taking war away was like taking the weather away. It felt impossible, but we did it slowly, patiently, firmly. When two species began a border dispute near the outer rim 6 years ago, we sent ambassadors. When the ambassadors were ignored, we sent warships, not to fight, just to sit between them, to make it physically impossible for them to shoot at each other. We sat there for 4 months until both sides agreed to talk. They talked, they reached an agreement, nobody died. When a rebel faction inside the old Golden Empire began gathering weapons 3 years ago, we tracked them down. We did not destroy them, we took their weapons and invited their leaders to Earth for tea. Most of them came, some of them stayed, a few of them now teach at our universities. Slowly, the galaxy realized that we were serious. There would not be any more big wars. There would not be any more conquests. There would not be any more ritual battles between champion fleets. Those days were done, not because we had convinced anyone with arguments, but because we had built a new reality, one quiet intervention at a time. Some species still resent us for it. They say we took away something sacred. They say we destroyed the ancient cycle. They say we are arrogant young upstarts who do not understand the ways of the galaxy. Maybe they are right, I do not know. What I know is this: in the 10 years since Neptune, no child has been orphaned by war, no city has been burned by enemy ships, no species has been enslaved or erased. For the first time in galactic memory, the stars are quiet. Not because there is nothing happening. 1,000 species are building, creating, loving, growing, but because the thing that used to happen between them, the thing called war, has stopped. We stopped it. Not because we are better than anyone else, not because we are wiser, not because we love peace more than any other species. We stopped it because we had seen what war actually was in our long, hard history on our small blue world, and we had decided as a species that we would never allow it to happen to us or to anyone we cared about again. I want to tell you about one conversation before I end this story. It happened last week. It changed me, and I think it will explain a lot. I was at a reception on Earth, a formal event for the 10-year anniversary of the Neptune engagement. Many alien ambassadors attended. Many human leaders attended. There was good food and quiet music and long, polite speeches. At the end of the evening, I found myself standing by a window looking out at the garden. An old Golden Empire officer came up beside me. I recognized him. His name was Crix. He had been at Neptune on the Grand Lord's flagship. He had written a famous book about the battle. From his side, he now taught at our military college, helping young human officers understand how the galaxy thought. He was old now. His golden scales had faded to a soft bronze. He walked with a cane. "Admiral Morgan," he said in his careful, accented voice. "Professor Crix," I said, "it is good to see you." We stood together in silence for a while, looking at the garden. Then he asked me a question I had been waiting 10 years to be asked. "Admiral, may I ask you something as a historian? Please. Was it always going to be this way? From the moment we declared war, was the outcome already decided? Was there any path, any choice we could have made that would have led somewhere other than what Happened. I thought about it for a long time. Really thought. Professor, I said finally, I think if your Grand Lord had landed at the United Nations in Geneva and said, we need to talk about some tension between our peoples, we would have talked. If he had said, we want to establish trade rules, we would have made rules. If he had said, we are worried about your expansion and we would like to discuss it, we would have discussed it. Humans love to talk, Professor. We talk for years about the smallest things. We would have talked with you. We would have found something. We might even have become friends. I looked at him. But your Grand Lord did not come to talk. He came to demand our surrender. He gave us 3 days. He said we would be the 848th race. He said our children would serve his people. Once he said those words, there was no other path. Not because we planned it that way. Because that is who we are. When someone threatens our children, we do not negotiate. We do not compromise. We do not ask for terms. We do whatever we have to do. And then we go home and hug our children and pretend the dark thing did not happen. Crix nodded slowly. So the war was not inevitable. Only our failure to avoid war was inevitable, given how we began. Yes. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked another question. Admiral, do you ever feel regret for what happened at Neptune, for everything? After I thought about that too. I thought about the 3,000 Golden Empire ships, about the crew on those ships, about the families those crew members had, about the mothers and fathers and children waiting on the capital world for loved ones who did not come home. Yes, Professor, I said softly, I feel regret every day. We all do. I know the story people tell that humans are cold, that we do not care, that we did what we did without feeling. That is not true. We felt every moment of it. We still feel it. There are monuments on Earth now to the crews of the Golden Empire ships. They are small monuments in quiet places, but they are there. We remember. He looked at me with wet eyes. Thank you, he said. For what? For telling me that. We stood in silence again. After a while he spoke once more. Admiral, one last question. What happens next for humanity, for the galaxy, now that we are in this new age? What is the next chapter? I smiled. I do not know, Professor. That is the truth. We did what we had to do. We kept our species alive. We helped the galaxy find a kind of peace. Now we are learning how to live with what we have built. Some days it is hard. Some days humans get into arguments with alien neighbors about noise complaints and trade tariffs and very small things. And I think this is wonderful. These are the problems we should have. Small problems. Human problems, alien problems, problems of peace. I looked up at the stars, which were just beginning to appear above the garden. Whatever comes next, Professor, I think it will be okay. I think we are finally learning how to be a species that does not have to fight to exist. That is a new thing for us. It is going to take some practice. He laughed, a dry, tired, warm laugh. Admiral, I am 300 years old, and I have learned one thing in my long life. The hardest lessons are always the best ones. He patted my arm with his old, scaled hand. Good night, Admiral Morgan. Good night, Professor. He walked away slowly with his cane, tapping softly on the stone floor. I stood at the window for a long time. After that, looking at the garden and the sky, I thought about my daughter who was now 16, tall and clever, and not impressed by the fact that her mother was an admiral. I thought about Lucy Hall, who still taught history in her small Irish town, and who had politely refused every award anyone had ever tried to give her. I thought about General Adami, who had died 2 years ago in his sleep, peacefully after a long walk in his garden. I thought about Captain Clark, who was now an old man running a fishing boat on the English coast, and who said he had seen enough of space to last him 2 lifetimes. I thought about all of us, all the ordinary humans who had, together without really planning it, quietly rewritten the rules of the galaxy. And I thought about the golden creature on my screen 10 years ago, promising to erase us from the stars. He had been so confident, so proud, so certain that he knew how things would go. He had conquered 847 races, and he was certain he would conquer us. He had not understood, he could not have understood, the galaxy had never seen species quite like us. We are not the strongest, we are not the wisest, we are not the oldest or the kindest or the most beautiful. We are small and strange and full of contradictions. We argue with each other constantly. We make mistakes all the time. We have flaws that would fill a book, but we survive. That is what we do. That is what we have always done. And when someone tries to take that from us, we do not flinch, we do not panic, we do not beg, we quietly finish our sandwiches, and then we go to work. The Galactic Empire declared war on us 10 years ago. We did not even flinch. And the stars are still here, and we are still here, and my daughter is asleep in our apartment in Geneva, and tomorrow the sun will come up over a quiet galaxy that has found for now a kind of peace. That is the story. That is how it happened. That is who we are.